The world of magic doesn't end with the turning of a page. Love rises and falls anew, forbidden like poison or blazing like a phoenix's flame. The heroes we thought we knew uncover their hearts once more. So step into the enchantment of emotion and welcome to a world where love is written anew. The night over Godric's Hollow was quiet in the way only late autumn nights could be. Cool, still, and expectant, as though the darkness itself were waiting for something to unfold. Harry Potter sat alone on the back step of his small cottage, elbows on his knees, staring at the faint glow of the village far below. He told himself he was out here for the fresh air, for the calm, for the peace he'd earned after years of war. But peace had not been visiting him lately. It began with dreams, strange, sharp-edged things that woke him with a start, leaving the taste of cold metal on his tongue. At first, he brushed them off. The mind could play odd tricks at night, especially for someone who'd lived through nightmares far worse. But the dreams grew more vivid. A dark corridor, the echo of distant footsteps, a whisper slithering across the back of his mind. And not just any whisper. Harry. Just once, the voice had curled through his thoughts with a familiarity that made his blood freeze. He told no one, not even Ginny at first. She was busy, always traveling for the Harpies, and he didn't want to wake her down when the season was just beginning. The kids were still young, their world small and safe. And Ron would worry himself sick. So Harry did what he'd always done. He tried to handle it alone. Tonight, he was supposed to be preparing for a ministry meeting the next morning, a gathering of auras to discuss the surge of dark artifacts surfacing across Britain. But all he could think of were the dreams. They left him with a bruise-like ache between his ribs and the uneasy feeling that something inside him was shifting. Footsteps approached through the house behind him, soft, careful ones he recognized immediately. Hermione Granger always walked like she was thinking through each step, as though her mind were half a hallway ahead of her feet. "Harry," she called gently, "are you out back?" He exhaled, a mix of relief and dread curling in his chest. Hermione had come to check on him after he'd sent her an owl the previous morning. He hadn't planned on telling her anything. He just needed reassurance, a familiar voice. But Hermione never did half measures. If Harry sent a letter that sounded the least bit off, she came running. She stepped outside, her warm scarf tucked under her chin, curls escaping in the cool wind. Lantern light spilled through the door behind her, outlining her in soft gold. "You didn't answer my last owl," she said, concern knitting her brows. "Sorry," Harry said with a weak smile. Didn't have much to say. Hermione moved beside him, sitting close enough that their shoulders brushed. "You always have something to say. You just don't always like saying it." Harry huffed out a quiet, humorless laugh. She knew him too well. For a moment, they just sat there, listening to the wind in the grass and the distant murmur of the village. Hermione waited patiently. She always did, until Harry finally found the courage to speak. "I'm having dreams," he said. "Strange ones." Her head tilted, worry blooming across her face. "Nightmares. I don't know what to call them." He hesitated. "There's a voice." Hermione didn't speak, but he felt her body tense next to his. Harry forced the words out. "It sounds like Voldemort." Silence fell heavy between them, thicker than the night air. Hermione drew a slow breath. "Harry, you destroyed the last piece of him. We all saw it. We all know it." "I know." Harry rubbed his palms against his knees. "But it feels real. Not like trauma, not like a memory, like something waking up." Hermione didn't dismiss him. She didn't scoff or gently explain the logic of trauma responses. Instead, she stared out into the dark, as though piecing together a puzzle she hadn't expected to find on her doorstep. "Describe the dreams to me," she said softly. Harry told her. The corridor, the footsteps, the whisper. The coldness that wasn't fear, but something else. Something familiar and wrong. Hermione listened, hands clasped tightly in her lap, eyes growing more grave with each passing detail. When he finished, the wind shifted, brushing a strand of her hair across his cheek. She turned toward him, face lit with both fear and resolve. "This might sound strange," she said slowly, "but I think I need to run some tests. Ancient magical ones that aren't exactly ministry approved." Harry looked up sharply. "You think something's actually wrong?" "I think," she said carefully, "that dreams like that don't come from nowhere. And knowing what you once carried, we can't assume everything was perfectly resolved." Harry swallowed. For years he had clung to the belief that the war was over for good, that the scar, the dreams, the guilt would fade into a distant echo. But Hermione's tone told him what his heart already knew. Something had been left behind. She placed a warm hand over his own, grounding him. "Whatever this is, we'll face it together." For the first time in days, Harry felt steady. Hermione's presence always had that effect on him, like the world was a little less heavy when she was near. And he had no idea just how much he would come to depend on that steadiness in the days ahead. Hermione stayed the night in the small guest room Harry and Ginny kept for visiting friends, though neither she nor Harry slept much. Long after the lanterns were extinguished and the cottage sank into silence, Hermione pored over old tomes she had brought, texts bound in dragonhide, smelling faintly of dust and age, whispering with the weight of forgotten magic. Harry could hear the soft rustle of their pages through the walls as he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, when dawn finally broke, pale, timid, creeping like a visitor unsure of its welcome. Hermione knocked softly on Harry's door. "Are you awake?" He sat up, rubbing tired eyes beneath fogged glasses. "Barely." "You should eat something first," she said, though her tone held an urgency that made it clear food was an afterthought. "Then we'll begin." Downstairs, sunlight spilled across the wooden kitchen table as Hermione spread her books across it, each marked with parchment tabs and small notes in her precise handwriting. Harry fixed tea, mostly to keep his hands busy, and tried not to stare at the titles. Soul Symmetry and Magical Echoes, Fragments of the Forsaken Spirit, The Anatomy of Enchanted Consciousness. Hermione spoke before he could ask. "These texts cover the oldest known forms of soul magic. Some of the spells and theories are centuries older than Hogwarts itself." Harry swallowed. "You think that's what we're dealing with?" Hermione hesitated. "I think we can't ignore the possibility." They moved from the cottage to the small clearing beyond the garden, a place shielded with protective charms since James had first chased fireflies there. Frost glittered on the grass, crunching softly beneath their boots. Hermione raised her wand, tracing arcs in the cold morning air, weaving a shimmering dome of golden light around them. "A containment ward," she explained, "just in case." Harry didn't ask in case of what. Hermione approached him with a steadiness that belied the rapid flutter of her pulse. She lifted her wand, her eyes searching his. "This won't hurt," she said. "Or at least, it shouldn't." When the spell struck, it felt like a sudden breath of winter had swept through him. His vision blurred, colors smearing at the edges, and for a moment the world tilted. He heard Hermione gasp softly, but not in fear, in confirmation. A thin shadow coiled around his left shoulder, visible only for an instant in the golden ward. Dark, flickering, almost alive. Hermione's face paled. "Harry, there's definitely something there." He exhaled shakily. "So, it's not just dreams?" "No." She lowered her wand slowly, as if afraid any sudden movement might provoke the thing lurking within him. "I've never seen a magical imprint behave like that. It's reactive." "Reactive," Harry repeated, trying to keep his breath steady. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It responded to the spell, as if it sensed it was being observed." The words felt heavier than they should. Harry wrapped his arms around himself, fighting the creeping chill that wasn't entirely from the morning air. Hermione began pacing in a slow circle, piecing together her thoughts. "When you destroyed the Horcrux inside you, the killing curse shattered Voldemort's soul fragment. But shards of a soul aren't always cleanly separated from the host. They can imprint, attach, become dormant." "And now," Harry said, "it's waking up." Hermione stopped pacing. Her breath clouded the air. "Yes." The wind brushed past them, rustling the ward like a thin golden veil. Hermione stepped closer, her expression softening at the fear flickering behind Harry's eyes. "I won't let anything happen to you," she said. Harry tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know." She squeezed his arm, warm and steady. "I'll need to run a deeper diagnostic, something far older and more precise than a standard detection charm, but it will require closeness." Harry raised a brow. "Closeness?" Hermione flushed slightly. "The spell traces soul resonance between two connected minds. I'll have to anchor it through physical contact, preferably hands or, well, something more direct." Harry swallowed, suddenly very aware of the small distance between them. "All right, whatever you need." Hermione guided him to sit on a flat stone at the center of the clearing. She knelt opposite him, the hem of her cloak sweeping the frost. Her hands were warm when they closed around his, and though the air was cold, a quiet heat unfurled between their palms. "Look at me," she said gently. He did. Her brown eyes were focused and bright, the kind of fierce concentration she used in battle or exams. But beneath it, he saw something else. Fear for him, yes, but something softer too, something he couldn't quite name yet. Hermione whispered the incantation, ancient, fluid, almost musical. The world dissolved. Light flared behind Harry's eyes, brilliant, blinding, and suddenly he was standing in a long, dark corridor. The corridor from his dreams, stones stretching endlessly in both directions, the air thick with cold. And Hermione stood beside him, her presence warm and steady, even in this spectral space. "This is your mind," she murmured. Or rather, the part of it touched by magic. A soft echo trembled somewhere in the dark. Footsteps. Hermione stepped closer. Stay by me. The fragment will sense us. Harry nodded, heart pounding. The corridor felt too familiar, as though he'd walked it 1,000 times without ever remembering the journey. A whisper curled through the air. "Harry." Hermione's grip tightened around his hand. "Don't answer. Don't engage." The whisper came again, closer, colder. Harry's scalp prickled, not painfully, but like a faint warning hum. Then he saw it, a shadow at the far end of the corridor, small, coiled, watching. Hermione inhaled sharply. That shouldn't be possible. The shadow shifted, rippling like smoke. "You thought I was gone." Harry's breath hitched. Hermione stepped in front of him, wand raised, eyes burning with protective fury. "Leave him!" The shadow recoiled, but not from her, from him. Then everything imploded. Light swallowed them whole. The corridor shattered like breaking glass. The world snapped back into the clearing with a force that sent both Harry and Hermione sprawling onto the frosted grass. Hermione pushed herself up first, coughing, eyes wild. "Harry, are you all right?" He nodded weakly, though his heartbeat thundered in his ears. What was that?" Hermione wiped frost from her palms, her face pale but determined. "That," she whispered, "was a soul fragment, and not just a remnant." She looked at him, voice trembling. "It's growing." Harry felt the cold settle into his bones. "What do we do?" Hermione met his gaze, fire lighting in her eyes. The same fire she'd had when she faced Death Eaters twice her size. The same fire she'd had the night she refused to abandon him in the Forest of Dean. "We fight it," she said firmly, "and we do it together." Harry took a breath, and for the first time since the dreams began, he felt something besides fear rise within him. Trust. Trust in Hermione. Trust that she would guide him through the darkness. He didn't yet realize how much deeper that trust would grow, or how profoundly it would change both of their lives in the days to come. The following days unfolded with a quiet urgency, as though time itself had begun to thin beneath their feet. Hermione remained in Godric's Hollow, moving into the guest room without a second thought. She wrote to Ron and the Department of Magical Research, telling them she had encountered a magical anomaly that required immediate investigation. She did not mention Harry. She did not mention soul fragments. She did not mention the way the corridor in Harry's mind had felt almost alive. Harry, for his part, tried to hold together the fragile normalcy of his home. He prepared breakfast for the children, helped James with his potions homework, listened to Albus talk passionately about magical creatures, and coaxed Lily into bed when she grew restless. Yet underneath it all, he carried a shadow, the sensation of something cold curling deep within him like a coiled serpent. Hermione watched him closely, not with fear, but with a kind of fierce protectiveness that reminded him how many times she had stood by his side when the world seemed intent on breaking him. On the third morning, after sending the children off with Andromeda for a planned weekend visit, Hermione closed the front door behind them and turned toward Harry. "We need to begin the real work," she said. Harry nodded, though an icy knot twisted beneath his ribs. "Where do we start?" Hermione lifted a small, ancient book bound in cracked sea-green leather. "There's a ritual, almost forgotten, which allows two connected souls to enter a shared locus of consciousness. It's deeper than legilimency. It's older than occlumency. If we can reach the heart of your magical core together, we may be able to pinpoint how deeply the fragment has embedded itself." Harry raised a brow. Together? Hermione hesitated. Soul rituals require connection, trust. They're not meant to be performed between strangers. Even close friends struggle to withstand the strain. He swallowed. Do you think we can handle it? Her gaze softened. We've already survived much worse. In the quiet of that moment, Harry felt something warm bloom in his chest. Something steadier than courage, softer than gratitude. Hermione always had a way of grounding him, but this felt different, as though the air itself shifted when she stood close. They prepared the sitting room for the ritual, rolling up the rug, drawing the curtains, and clearing a large space on the wooden floor. Hermione lit 5 candles around the room, each emitting a faint silver glow. When she opened the sea-green book, the candles flared with a soft whoosh, their flames swaying, as though greeting the magic awakened. "Sit with me," Hermione said, lowering herself onto the floor. Harry sat opposite her, their knees nearly touching. Hermione placed both hands over his, warm, steady, certain. The moment their palms aligned, a soft hum filled the room, the air thickening with ancient power. "This won't be like last time," she said. "This time, we're entering your magical core together. I'll guide us as far as I can." Harry nodded. "I trust you." She looked at him then, really looked, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to just the two of them. Her eyes shimmered with something tender, something unspoken. Then she whispered the incantation. The floor fell away. They stood in a vast expanse of shimmering twilight. Not a corridor this time, but a boundless space filled with floating motes of light. Each orb pulsed gently, radiating warmth. Hermione stepped forward, wonder flickering across her face. "This is your magical essence," she murmured. "Your core. It's beautiful, Harry." Harry turned slowly, taking in the soft glimmer that seemed to respond to his breath, to his heartbeat. It felt strangely peaceful, until a harsh crack rippled through the space, like shattered glass grinding underfoot. A cluster of lights dimmed suddenly, flickering weakly. Hermione stiffened. "It's here." From the far side of the expanse, a smear of darkness unfurled, gliding forward like a shadow spilling across water. Harry felt an icy tremor crawl along his spine. The fragment. It didn't look like Voldemort. Not yet. But its presence carried the same coldness Harry had felt years ago, the coldness of something hungry, watching, waiting. Hermione stepped closer to him, lifting her wand. "Stay behind me. Don't let it touch you." "It's inside me, Hermione," he said quietly. "It already touches me." Her jaw tightened. "Not while I'm here." The shadow halted several paces away, its shape flickering between smoke and something more defined. Harry heard a faint whisper curl through the air, not as sharp as before, but unmistakable. "You cannot escape me." Hermione's wand glowed bright silver, sending a crackling wave of light across the space. The fragment recoiled with a hiss, retreating but not disappearing. Hermione gripped Harry's hand tightly. "Good. It's vulnerable to anything anchored through you. As long as I'm connected to your core, we can fight it." Before Harry could speak, the fragment surged again, faster this time, darting low, twisting like a serpent in water. Harry felt Hermione's hand slip from his as the force of the attack knocked them apart. Harry staggered backward. The ground beneath him trembled, and the lights around him dimmed, flickering like dying stars. Hermione's voice cut through the dark. "Harry, anchor yourself. Focus on your magic." But he couldn't. The shadow sensed his unsteadiness. It lunged, dragging a streak of cold across the air. Harry stumbled, falling to one knee. Pain flared behind his scar, not sharp, but dull and gnawing, like something chewing at the edges of his mind. Hermione sprinted toward him, her cloak flaring behind her, wand raised. A beam of brilliant white light erupted from its tip, slamming into the fragment. It shrieked, an awful scraping sound that made the air ripple. Harry sucked in a breath, clutching his chest. The cold receded slightly. Hermione crouched beside him, placing a steadying hand on his cheek. "Stay with me. Don't let it pull you under." Her touch grounded him instantly. Her warmth spread through him, clearing the fog clawing at his thoughts. He met her gaze, breath shaking. I felt it, Hermione. It wasn't just attacking my magic. It was trying to invade my memories. Her eyes widened. That means it's stronger than I feared. She lifted her wand again, her expression shifting into fierce determination. "We're ending this for today. It's too unstable." Hermione whispered a closing incantation, and the world shuddered. The twilight expanse shattered like fragments of moonlit glass. The sitting room reformed around them with a rush of cold air. Harry gasped, leaning forward on his hands. Hermione quickly knelt beside him. "Harry, talk to me. Are you hurt?" He shook his head, though he felt dizzy, hollowed out, weak. "It drained me. It tried to pull at my memories, at the ones I care about most." Hermione's voice softened, laced with pain. "I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful." Harry looked at her, really looked, seeing the guilt clouding her eyes. He lifted a trembling hand and placed it over hers. "You protected me. You always do." Her breath hitched slightly. She squeezed his hand, her thumb brushing lightly across his knuckles. The gesture lingered, a touch both tender and grounding. For a moment, neither of them moved. The candles flickered gently around them, casting a warm glow that softened the edges of the room and the ache in Harry's chest. Hermione spoke first, her voice quiet but resolute. "We need to be careful. The fragment is reacting to you, changing because of you, and if it evolves any further, removing it might become impossible." Harry swallowed, the weight of her words settling heavily between them. "So, what do we do next?" Hermione looked at him with a mix of determination and tenderness. "We learn its nature, we study its behavior, and we don't face it alone." Harry felt warmth bloom beneath his ribs, not from magic, but from her, from the certainty in her voice, from the closeness between them, fragile yet undeniable. Whatever darkness lay ahead, he knew one truth with absolute clarity. As long as Hermione was beside him, he would not face it in fear. But neither of them yet understood how deeply their paths and their hearts were already intertwining. The cottage grew quieter in the days that followed, as though holding its breath with them. Outside, rain swept across Godric's Hollow in thin silver sheets, drumming softly against the windows and soaking the deep autumn earth. Inside, candles burned late into the night, illuminating a sitting room where Hermione had built what she called a temporary research sanctum, a careful arrangement of old texts, enchanted diagrams, and protective runes drawn in fading blue chalk. Harry often watched her work. Even in silence, Hermione filled the room with a kind of fierce, steady brilliance. Quills hovered over parchment as she whispered to herself, cross-referencing spells older than Hogwarts, deciphering fragments of languages long dead. Her brow furrowed when she found something troubling, and her wand flicked sharply through the air when she strengthened the wards that separated the cottage from the outside world. She barely slept. Harry wanted to tell her to rest, to let him manage alone for a night. But he knew she wouldn't. Hermione carried her worries the way some witches carried wands, tightly, protectively, unwilling to set them down even for a moment. Late one evening, after hours spent studying the soul fragment's imprint on his magical core, Hermione closed a book with a soft thud and rubbed her temples. "You're exhausted," Harry said from the armchair across the room. "So are you," she replied without looking up. "Maybe," he admitted, "but you've been at this for days. You need rest." Hermione finally lifted her eyes to him, and for a moment he saw past the determination to the worry beneath it. "If I stop, even for a little while, the fragment might advance. It changed after we entered your core. It reacted to us. It's adapting, Harry." He swallowed. "What does that mean?" Hermione rose from the table and paced toward him, her cloak brushing the wooden floor. "It means this fragment may not be just a dormant shard. It may be trying to stabilize, to grow stronger, and if it gains enough strength, it could take root so deeply that extracting it might—" She stopped, jaw tightening. "I won't let that happen." Harry stood, closing the distance between them. "Hermione, listen. We've dealt with worse than this. Voldemort himself. The Horcrux inside me. We'll get through this too." She looked up at him, her eyes shadowed with a mixture of fear and fierce resolve. "Not if I fail to understand how it works." Harry hesitated before gently touching her shoulder. "You won't fail." Hermione's breath caught slightly at the contact, though she didn't step away. Instead, she met his gaze with a softness he hadn't expected. For a heartbeat, the quiet between them felt deeper than fear. Something warm, something familiar, yet unspoken. Then she exhaled, steadying herself. "There's one more method I haven't tried, something very old, very delicate." Harry let his hand fall to his side. "What kind of method?" "A resonance ritual." Hermione moved back to the table, pulling out a thin scroll covered in looping ancient runes. It was once used to track soul fractures in wizards who had undergone severe magical trauma. It works by aligning two magical cores so closely that they resonate as one. "That sounds dangerous," Harry said carefully. "It is," she admitted, not meeting his eyes. "Most resonance spells are forbidden now because they can create emotional bleed. Thoughts, fears, memories slipping between the two participants. It's intrusive, intimate, but without it, we may never understand how the fragment is binding itself to you." Harry stepped closer. "And you want to align your magic with mine." Hermione finally looked up. "There's no one else I trust to attempt it, and no one else you trust enough for the ritual to work." Harry opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right. He trusted Hermione with everything. His safety, his past, even the darkness twisting through his soul. She had always been the one person who never faltered when he needed her. He nodded slowly. "Tell me what to do." Hermione unrolled the scroll on the floor. The runes shimmered faintly, shifting like moonlit water. She lit 5 new candles, each glowing with a soft golden flame, then motioned for Harry to sit with her within the circle of light. The runes brightened as he stepped inside. Hermione knelt opposite him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her breath. "Place your hands over mine," she instructed quietly. Harry obeyed. Her hands were small but strong, steady even though her pulse fluttered beneath his palms. "The ritual requires that we open our minds just enough for our magic to intermingle," she said. "Not thoughts, not memories, not unless something goes wrong." Harry gave a faint smile. Comforting. Hermione's lips twitched despite the tension. "Close your eyes." He did. Her voice flowed through the stillness, calm and ancient, weaving the incantation like a spell sung through time. Harry felt a soft warmth spread from her hands into his, then up his arms, reaching slowly toward his chest. His breath quickened as the warmth slid deeper, brushing against the edges of his magical core. Then it changed. The warmth thickened into a golden thread, a strand of Hermione's magic, winding around his own like a gentle twist of light. Harry felt her presence as clearly as if she was speaking into him, steady, bright, fiercely protective. Hermione gasped softly. "Harry, your magic, it's responding." He swallowed. "In a good way. In a..." Her voice wavered, then steadied. "In a very strong way." Their magic intertwined more tightly, resonating like two strings pulled into harmony. Harry felt her emotions, briefly, lightly, as whisper soft impressions. Worry, determination, warmth directed toward him with startling intensity. Then something cold stirred beneath the resonance. The fragment. A sliver of darkness twisted through the golden light, seeking the connection Hermione had formed. Harry flinched as the icy pulse struck at the bond. Hermione's grip tightened. "I feel it. Harry, stay with me." The fragment lashed again, harder. Harry's mind flickered with flashes, images not his own. A corridor, a scream, a wand raised in hate. Hermione's voice cut through the chaos. "Anchor yourself. Focus on me, on the connection." He tried, pulling himself toward her magic, toward the warmth she offered like a steady hand in the dark. But the fragment sensed the bond. It surged along the resonance, trying to force its way across the magical bridge between them. Hermione gasped sharply, eyes flying open. "It's trying to touch me." Harry's heart lurched. "Break the spell! Now!" "No," she said through clenched teeth. "If I sever it while it's inside the resonance, it could damage your core. Hold on. I can contain it." The runes glowed brighter, pulsing frantically. The candles flared. Hermione's magic tightened like a shield around his, wrapping him in gold. She forced the fragment back with a trembling force of will, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Light exploded through the room. Harry felt the resonance snap. He fell backward, gasping, the world spinning. Hermione collapsed beside him, clutching her wand, her face pale with strain. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The candles flickered weakly, their flames shrinking. Harry finally pushed himself up. "Hermione, talk to me. Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her hands trembled. "I'm all right. It didn't reach me fully, but it tried." Harry's stomach twisted. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think—" "Don't apologize," she whispered fiercely. "This isn't your fault." He reached for her without thinking, steadying her as she sat up. Her breath hitched softly at the contact, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she rested her forehead lightly against his shoulder, exhausted. Harry froze, not in fear, but in the realization of how natural it felt to hold her. How right. Hermione spoke quietly, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. It's stronger now. It's learning. We have less time than I thought. Harry wrapped his arms around her, steady and certain. Then we face it faster, smarter, together. Hermione didn't answer at first. She simply leaned into him, letting herself rest against him for the first time in years. And even in the shadow of dark magic, even with danger tightening around them like a closing fist, something gentle began to take shape between them. Fragile, unexpected, quietly inevitable. The storm that swept through Godric's Hollow that night seemed almost aware of the tension within the cottage. Rain lashed the windows with the persistence of a messenger, knocking over and over, and wind pressed at the walls like a restless spirit. Yet inside, the air was warm, heavy with candlelight and the quiet hum of protective wards. Hermione had fallen asleep only once, briefly, curled in the armchair with a quilt around her shoulders, before snapping awake as though her thoughts refused to let her rest. Harry wished she would sleep longer, but every time he suggested it, she waved him off with a weary smile. "We're close," she insisted. "I can feel it. I'm almost certain I know what kind of fragment we're dealing with." Harry followed her into the kitchen, where she rummaged through a stack of parchment. "There are 3 types of soul remnants left after a Horcrux is destroyed," she explained. "Lingering echoes, feral shards, and—" She stopped. Harry leaned forward. "And what?" Hermione's fingers tightened around the parchment. "And living imprints." He frowned. "What's that?" Hermione took a slow breath, the candlelight flickering across her face. "A living imprint isn't just a fragment of a soul. It's a fragment with intent. It reacts. It adapts. It mimics the patterns of a living consciousness by feeding off the host's magic." She raised her eyes to his, her expression grave. "That's why it went after your memories. It's trying to stabilize, trying to learn." "Learn what?" Harry asked quietly. "How to survive," she whispered. "How to become more than a shadow." Cold crept through Harry's spine, but before he could respond, Hermione set the parchment down and stepped toward him. "This changes our approach. We can't simply cut it out. A living imprint attaches itself in layers: memory, emotion, magic. If we try to force it free, it may damage your core. Or worse." Harry swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" Hermione looked at him with a steadiness forged from years of facing the impossible. "We have to weaken it, unravel its connection to you, strip away the layers it's using to survive." Harry exhaled. "And how do we do that?" "By going into your memories," she said softly. The words hung in the air like falling snow, gentle, cold, unavoidable. Hermione continued, her voice calm despite the fear shimmering beneath it. "The fragment binds itself to the memories it finds strongest, memories tied to emotion. If we go into those memories together, we can find where it's hiding and loosen its hold." Harry hesitated. "You'd see everything." Hermione's expression softened. "Only if you let me." He wasn't sure what frightened him more, letting Hermione into the darkest corners of his past, or knowing she would see moments he had buried for years. Moments of pain he never voiced, moments of loss he never shared, moments where he had broken. Hermione reached out, brushing her fingers gently against his arm. "Harry, I won't judge anything you've lived through, and I won't let you face it alone." He looked into her eyes and found not pity, not fear, but the same unwavering loyalty she had shown him since they were children. The same loyalty that had carried him through battles, heartbreak, without loss. And something more now, warmer, deeper, blooming like a quiet ember. "All right," he said softly. "Let's do it." Hermione nodded, her breath leaving her in a slow, steady exhale. "We'll start tonight." They prepared the memory chamber in the sitting room, drawing runes across the floor and lighting a circle of soft blue candles. Hermione placed 2 silver pendants in the center, linked by a thin thread of enchanted silk. "These will anchor our consciousness," she explained, handing one to Harry. "Once we enter the memory path, we won't be spectators. We'll be participants. The magic will reconstruct each moment as it was." Harry fastened the pendant around his neck. "What's the danger?" "If the fragment interferes," Hermione said quietly, "it may alter the memory, or try to trap us inside it." Harry's pulse quickened. "Can it do that?" "Only if we lose our connection to each other." Hermione knelt before him, her expression solemn and earnest. "Whatever happens, you must stay close to me. Follow my voice. Don't let the memory pull you away." Harry's breath caught. "I won't." She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers with his. The touch anchored him, warm and sure, an unspoken promise between them. Hermione whispered the incantation. The world blurred. A soft wind swept around them, lifting the candle flames. The sitting room grew dim, the floor dissolving into mist. Harry felt himself pulled forward, gently at first, then faster, as though caught in a current. Then the mist cleared. Harry blinked. He was standing in a wide, sunlit courtyard. Children laughed nearby. The sky was bright. The stone towers of Hogwarts rose around him, majestic and familiar. And beside him, her hand still in his, stood Hermione, eyes wide with recognition. "This," Hermione breathed, "this is your memory." Harry turned slowly, chest tightening as he recognized it. "Our first year," he said quietly. "The day we finished exams." Students lounged on the grass. Sunlight glimmered on the lake. Hagrid's hut stood at the hill's edge, smoke curling from its chimney. The air smelled of summer and leaves and innocence, things Harry had rarely felt since. Hermione looked at him with a small, wistful smile. "I remember this day. We were so young." Harry felt warmth bloom in his chest, tinged with something bittersweet. But as he took in the scene, he noticed something wrong. A flicker at the edge of the courtyard, a shadow that didn't belong. Hermione noticed it too. The fragment. Harry squeezed her hand. "Stay close." They walked through the memory, weaving between laughing students and drifting sunlight. Yet, despite the warmth of the scene, Harry felt an undercurrent of chill, like cold air brushing the back of his neck. The fragment was near. Hermione whispered, "Where, Harry? What moment does this memory hold for you?" Harry hesitated. "It was the first time I felt hopeful, truly hopeful. Exams were over. Voldemort was nowhere in sight. For a moment, I felt like a normal boy." Hermione's heart tightened at the softness in his voice. She wanted to reach for him, to comfort him. But the memory shifted, darkening slightly. A shadow crept across the grass. Hermione's eyes widened. "There!" At the far edge of the courtyard, near the stone archway, a thin coil of darkness oozed like spilled ink, creeping across the sunlit grass without casting a shadow of its own. It pulsed faintly, sensing them. Harry lifted his wand. Hermione raised hers beside him. "On 3. But before she reached 2, the fragment struck. The courtyard shattered into swirling darkness. Harry felt Hermione's hand yanked from his. He spun, reaching for her, but memory and shadow tore them apart. "Hermione! Harry!" Their voices echoed through the collapsing scene as the fragment dragged him into another memory. One not warm, not peaceful, but cold and jagged. A memory he had never wanted to face again. A street appeared beneath his feet, dark, narrow, echoing with a scream. Hermione's voice reached him faintly, distant, panicked. "Harry, hold on! I'm coming!" Harry felt the cold settle into his bones. This memory was not chosen by him. It was chosen by the fragment, and it was one of the worst nights of his life. Before Hermione could reach him, the darkness closed in, and the fragment whispered, pleased, "Let us see what you fear most." The scream echoed again, sharper this time, bouncing off narrow brick walls as if trapped in a loop. Harry staggered, breath turning to frost as the memory tightened around him. He knew this place instantly, though he had only walked it once in real life. Little Whinging, Magnolia Crescent, the night the Dementors attacked him and Dudley. The air thickened with cold, the kind that gnawed at bone and soul alike. Lamps flickered, mist curled around the pavement like pale fingers. Harry clenched his fists. Why this memory? Because this was the first time, after Voldemort's return, that the darkness had nearly claimed him. The first time he had felt power slipping from his grasp, eaten away by despair. The fragment chose it. A soft crack split the air as Hermione materialized beside him, stumbling slightly as the memory's weight slammed into her. She gasped, instantly wrapping an arm around herself. "Harry, this place, this cold." She stopped, eyes wide. "Dementors, this is the night you—" Before she could finish, a harsh, dragging rattle echoed down the street. Hermione spun, her wand raised. "We're not facing the real memory, are we? It's stronger." Harry nodded grimly. The fragment distorted it. This isn't how it happened. The mist thickened. Shadows lengthened unnaturally. The cold deepened so sharply, Harry felt his heartbeat slow. A Dementor glided into view, taller than he remembered, darker, its form shifting like a shroud dipped in ink. And behind it came another, and another, until the entire street seemed choked with them. Hermione stepped closer, shoulder brushing his, voice tight. "Harry, this isn't a memory anymore. It's a trap." The nearest Dementor swept forward with a greed that made the air tremble. Hermione raised her wand. "Expecto Patron." But the spell sputtered. A faint shimmer of silver, nothing more. Hermione's eyes widened in horror. "The fragment is interfering with our magic." "Then we do this together," Harry said, grabbing her hand. "Focus. Don't let the scene rewrite itself." Hermione took a steadying breath, grounding herself with his grip. Harry lifted his wand. "Expecto Patronum." This time his voice cut through the cold. A burst of silver light flared, weak, wavering, but real. Hermione added her spell, and their magic intertwined, forming a thin but determined shield. A silver mist spread around them. But the Dementors did not retreat. They circled, gliding close enough that Harry felt their breath, cold and rotting against his skin. Hermione shuddered, her voice trembling. "This isn't right. Dementors don't move like this. They're not supposed to think." "They're not Dementors," Harry said softly. "They're the fragment." Hermione turned sharply toward him, fear widening her eyes. "It's manifesting itself through what you dread most." Harry swallowed hard. "Then we have to change the memory." "How?" Hermione asked, her breath misting in the freezing air. By remembering what really happened, Harry said. The truth. He closed his eyes. He forced himself to push past the panic, past the cold, past the memory of Dudley trembling beside him and the crushing weight of despair. He focused instead on what came after. Light, warmth, the memory of his Patronus bursting forth. Hope. He held the memory tight, drawing strength from it, shaping it not with magic, but with will. And suddenly, silver light erupted from his wand, brilliant and blinding. A great stag charged forward, antlers slicing through the fog. It rushed toward the Dementors, scattering them like torn shadows. Hermione gasped, her hand tightening in his. "Harry, that's my Patronus, the real one." The stag circled them protectively, its silver form casting warmth through Harry's veins, pushing the cold back. The Dementors retreated, shrinking, dissolving into smoke. Hermione leaned into him, breath shaking in relief. "You changed the memory. You overpowered the fragment's influence." Harry squeezed her hand. "We're not finished." The mist thinned. The street of Magnolia Crescent faded, cracks running through it like shattered glass. Harry felt the memory unraveling, dissolving around them. Hermione steadied herself, wand raised. "Where is it? The fragment's still here." Harry scanned the fading scene. Then he saw it. A shadow clinging to the wall behind the nearest lamppost. Small, twisted, clinging like a dark parasite. "There!" he shouted. Hermione spotted it instantly. "We have to force it out." But when they stepped toward it, the fragment writhed sharply and the world lurched. The memory shattered again. Harry felt his stomach drop as darkness swallowed them both. "Hermione, hold on!" Her fingers gripped his tightly. Then light exploded outward, and the darkness spat them into another scene. Harry hit the ground with a thud. Grass brushed his palms. Cool night air filled his lungs. Hermione groaned beside him. Where are we now?" Harry lifted his head, and his heart stilled. Graveyard, cold, moonlit, silent. The graveyard at Little Hangleton. Hermione sat up, dread rippling across her expression. "Harry, this is—" "I know," he whispered, voice raw. "The night of the resurrection." Hermione reached for him instinctively, gripping his arm. "The fragment is guiding us into memories tied to the strongest emotions. Fear, pain, loss. And this one has all three." The air felt heavier, weighted with the echo of Voldemort's rising scream. The shadows seemed thicker, and the gravestones far more sinister than they had been in the real memory. Hermione steadied herself. "Stay close to me. This memory, it's too dangerous." Harry opened his mouth to answer. Then a figure moved at the far end of the graveyard. A tall shadow, thin as bone, cloaked. Not Voldemort, not quite, but close enough that the air seemed to curdle around him. Harry felt the fragment's presence like a dagger of ice. The figure lifted its head. Two pale, gleaming eyes appeared beneath the hood. A hiss slithered through the graveyard. "You cannot run from what you carry, Harry Potter." Hermione stepped in front of Harry without hesitation, wand raised, voice sharp with defiance. "You aren't Voldemort." The hooded figure tilted its head. Not yet. The cold deepened. Hermione's hand found Harry's. Her voice was steady, fierce. "This isn't him. This is a memory twist, a hallucination, a test." Harry gripped her hand back, grounding himself. "Then we fight it." The figure stepped closer, and the ground trembled. Hermione whispered urgently, "Harry, listen to me. If the fragment is assuming a physical form inside your memories, That means it's drawing power directly from your core. It's stronger than we thought. Then we weaken it, Harry said. Here, now. Hermione nodded, jaw set. Together they raised their wands. The figure lifted its arm, imitating a wand shape, though no wand was visible. The air split with a shriek of dark magic. Harry and Hermione shouted in unison, "Protego Maxima!" A dome of light burst around them, the memory ground shattering beneath its force. The figure hit the shield and recoiled, hissing, twisting, dissolving into smoke. Hermione kept her wand raised, sweat beading at her brow. "Push it back. Don't let it reform." Harry poured his magic into the shield, feeling Hermione's strength intertwine with his, steadying him. The smoke shrieked, twisting violently, then tore upward in a spiral of darkness and vanished with a final echoing hiss. The graveyard blurred. Hermione gasped, clutching Harry's arm as the memory cracked apart. The world rippled. Then the sitting room reformed around them, faintly, flickering like a candle about to go out. They collapsed back onto the wooden floor, both trembling, gasping for breath. Hermione pressed a hand over her heart, her face pale but fierce. "Harry, we weakened it. You saw it. It couldn't hold its form." Harry leaned back against the wall, chest burning, vision swimming slightly. "But it showed us something too." Hermione looked at him, breath still unsteady. "What?" Harry swallowed. "The form it took, the voice, the way it attacked." Hermione's eyes widened as realization dawned. "It's becoming him." Harry nodded. "The fragment, it's evolving." Hermione's breath hitched with fear and determination. "Then we have to find its source, its anchor, before it grows strong enough to become something we can't stop." Harry met her gaze. Her eyes were tired, frightened, but brave, fiercely, brilliantly brave. And he realized, with sudden clarity, that the only thing keeping the darkness at bay was her hand in his. "We'll find it," he whispered. Hermione squeezed his hand. "Together," she said. The morning after their ordeal inside Harry's memories arrived pale and hesitant, as if the sun itself feared to cross the threshold of the cottage. A thin mist clung to the garden, and frost silvered the windows. The air was hushed, reverent, like the quiet before a prophecy is spoken aloud. Harry woke with a start on the sitting room sofa, heart beating a frantic rhythm. Hermione sat nearby, legs tucked beneath her, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She wasn't reading. She wasn't writing. She was watching him, quietly, worry etched in every line of her face. "You didn't sleep," Harry murmured, voice rough. Hermione shook her head gently. "Neither did you." He shifted to sit upright, rubbing his eyes. "Are we still here? In the real world?" A small, tired smile touched her lips. "Yes, Harry. We're home." She hesitated. "Your magic was restless. It woke the wards twice." Harry frowned. "I don't remember that." "You wouldn't. It was instinct, like your core was battling something in your sleep." Hermione's fingers tightened on the blanket. "The fragment may be trying to destabilize you while you're vulnerable." Harry exhaled, weary but determined. "Then we stop it before it can." Hermione's gaze softened. "You always make it sound so simple." "It never is," Harry admitted. "But we've never backed down before." Hermione looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression warmed, as though his words ignited a spark she had been trying to protect. "Then we continue," she whispered. They cleaned the room together, quietly re-centering the runes, and refreshing the protective wards. Hermione moved with practiced grace, though exhaustion lingered in her movements. Harry placed a hand on her shoulder as she crouched beside a rune circle. "You don't have to carry all of this alone," he said softly. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "I know, but I worry about making a mistake, about not being fast enough, about losing you." Harry's breath caught. "You won't lose me." Hermione swallowed hard, as if trying to steady herself. "This fragment, it's becoming clever. It manipulated your memories. It took a shape, a voice, a presence. Harry, if it evolves into a full consciousness..." He cupped her shoulder more firmly. "Then we'll defeat it before that happens." She nodded, though her eyes spoke of doubts she didn't voice. Harry wanted to tell her everything he felt at that moment, that her voice steadied him, her presence anchored him, her courage breathed life into him when the darkness pressed close. But he held the words back. There would be time. They spent the next hours gathering materials, rare herbs, enchanted threads, a basin of moon water, a mirror polished with phoenix ash. Hermione explained each with careful precision. "The fragment hides behind emotion," she said. "It binds to the memories that shaped your soul. If we're to trace it to its anchor, we must follow the emotional trail." Harry nodded. "You mean we have to go deeper?" Hermione met his gaze, her voice softening. "Into memories you haven't touched in years. Memories that hurt. But there's no other way." Harry didn't flinch. "Then I'll face them." Hermione's chest rose with a quiet, proud breath. When the ritual was ready, they knelt together before the basin of moon water. The surface rippled with silver light, shimmering like a soft, liquid mirror. Hermione placed her hand lightly over Harry's. "We'll anchor our minds again," she whispered. "But this time the ritual will seek out the memories the fragment feeds on, the strongest ones, the ones that shaped you." Harry exhaled. "I trust you." Hermione squeezed his hand, her voice trembling faintly. "Then let's begin." She whispered the spell. The silver basin glowed, the room blurred, and memory opened like a doorway. Harry blinked, and the world around him sharpened into focus. He stood in a quiet forest clearing, the scent of pine thick in the air. Twilight filtered through the branches in soft violet hues. Hermione stood beside him, her breath catching. "This is the Forbidden Forest." Harry nodded slowly. "The night we ran, the night we left Hogwarts." Hermione's eyes softened with nostalgia and pain. The Forest of Dean. Snow fell gently around them, settling on Hermione's curls, glowing faintly in the moonlight. He saw her younger self across the clearing, knees pulled to her chest beside bluebell flames, face tight with exhaustion and fear and longing. Hermione lifted a hand to her heart. "Harry, this was the night you and Ron fought when you left, and I thought I might lose you both." Harry swallowed. "This is one of the memories the fragment chose." "Not for darkness," Hermione whispered. "For emotion. This night shaped your bond with me." Across the clearing, the younger Harry approached young Hermione, offering her hope and warmth, trying to ease her heartache. Hermione's eyes softened at the memory, but something shifted. The edges of the clearing flickered. The snow darkened, twisting mid-air. The young Hermione's flames guttered, shrinking to pale ash. Harry tensed. "It's here." A cold wind swept through the forest, bending the trees. Shadows bled through the snow, creeping over the clearing like spilled ink. Hermione raised her wand. "Stay close." The shadows thickened, then surged forward. Without warning, Hermione's younger self vanished, snuffed out like candlelight. The clearing dimmed. The bluebell flames were extinguished. The forest rotted into a twisted, skeletal form. The fragment materialized at the center, a shifting figure of smoke, wearing no face, no shape, only hunger. Harry lifted his wand. Hermione stepped to his side. The fragment hissed. "This bond is strong." Hermione's jaw tightened. "Stay out of his memories." The fragment twisted toward Harry, tendrils reaching. "It binds you, it sustains you, and I will use it to live." Hermione stepped forward with sudden fury. "No, you won't." She cast a circle of brilliant light that forced the fragment back. The forest trembled. Snow swirled violently. But the fragment didn't weaken. It grew. Its tendrils surged outward, sweeping through the clearing like shadowy vines. Hermione gasped as one struck her shoulder, sending a shock of icy pain through her. "Hermione!" "I'm all right. Focus, Harry." But the shadow lunged again, this time aiming directly for Harry's chest, aiming for his core. Harry raised his wand, but the cold hit him like a blow. His knees buckled. The forest spun. Hermione screamed his name through the storm of memory. Through the haze, he saw her rush to him, shielding him with her entire body as the fragment's tendrils struck again and again. Protecting him, the fragment hissed. Even now, even here. Hermione stood firm, her warmth pressing against him, her magic burning gold. "You won't touch him," she whispered through clenched teeth. "Not while I am here." Harry felt her magic flood the memory. Fierce, bright, unyielding. It intertwined with his, burning through the cold. The fragment recoiled, shrieking, shrinking under the force of their joined strength. The forest erupted in silver light. The shadows tore apart. The fragment shattered, dissolving into a cloud of smoke. Hermione collapsed into Harry's arms, trembling. Harry pulled her close, holding her tightly. "Hermione, are you hurt?" She shook her head against his chest, though her breath trembled. "I'm all right. I'm all right." He held her a moment longer, feeling the warmth of her against him, feeling their magic still entwined. When Hermione finally lifted her head, her eyes shone, not just with relief, but with something deeper. "Harry," she whispered, "this memory, it wasn't chosen only for pain. It was chosen for what connects us, for what binds us." Harry swallowed, heart pounding. "Hermione!" But before he could speak, the words rising within him, the forest flickered. Hermione stiffened. "The ritual isn't finished." Harry tightened his grip on her hand. "Then we go deeper," he whispered. And together they stepped into the next memory waiting in the shadows. The moment they stepped forward, the world dissolved with a sharp pull, like a hook tugging them through layers of time and memory. Colors blurred, the forest's fading glow mixing with a rising swirl of shadow and gold. Harry tightened his grip on Hermione's hand, and she squeezed back, grounding him as the magic hurled them downward. When the world finally steadied, it formed around them in fragments, shattered stone, drifting dust, and a sky stained with smoke. Hermione inhaled sharply. "This is Hogwarts." Harry felt the breath leave him. The battle. They stood in the ruined courtyard beside the blasted fountain, just moments after Fred's body had been carried away. The ground was thick with debris and the echo of grief. Hermione's younger self knelt on the stones, Ron's arms around her as she cried softly into his shoulder. Harry stood nearby, silent, staring toward the shattered castle doors where death had walked so freely. Hermione's hand trembled in his. "Harry, why would the fragment choose this memory? It isn't tied to its own magic." Harry's voice was low, tight. "Because it's tied to mine." Hermione turned to him, her expression softening with sorrow. "This night broke you." Harry said nothing. The memory moved without them. They were only observers until the fragment's presence seeped through the cracks. Shadows pooled at the edges of the courtyard, sliding toward the memory like ink creeping across parchment. A cold wind swept through the ruins, scattering ash and embers. Hermione raised her wand. "It's shifting the memory." The younger Harry stepped back from Ron and Hermione, moving toward the castle steps. His face was pale, his eyes distant, his shoulders weighed down with unbearable grief. Hermione whispered, "This was the moment you walked toward the forest. To die." Harry nodded, throat tight. "I went alone." But here the memory twisted, the air rippled. The younger Hermione vanished from Ron's arms, erased by shadow. Ron himself flickered like a candle losing its flame. The remaining figures blurred. Only the younger Harry remained, frozen in place, staring blankly toward the forest. Hermione gasped. "It's isolating you." Black veins of shadow crawled across the stones like cracks spreading from a single weak point. The fragment whispered, "You walked alone then, and you will walk alone now." Hermione stepped in front of Harry, defiant. "He doesn't walk alone anymore." The shadows surged toward them in a violent wave. Hermione cast a shield, but the memory trembled beneath their feet, rippling like an illusion straining under too much pressure. Harry forced himself to breathe through the rising panic. "We need to break its control by grounding the memory." "How?" Hermione asked, voice strained. Harry looked at the younger version of himself, so hollow, so frightened, so resigned. "By reminding it what really happened." Hermione's brow furrowed. "Harry, you walked alone." "No," he said softly, "not truly." The memory flickered as if listening. "I carried all of you with me," Harry whispered. "Ron, Hermione, Mum and Dad, Sirius, Remus, Fred, everyone who loved me, everyone who believed in me." Hermione's eyes glistened, reflecting the glow of the trembling memory. Harry stepped closer to the younger him. "You were never alone," he said gently. The younger Harry blinked, his expression shifting, just slightly, from despair to recognition. Hermione inhaled sharply as the memory stabilized. The shadows recoiled, hissing as golden light rippled outward from Harry's words. Harry felt warmth flood through him, Hermione's hand tightening around his, her magic weaving with his. But the fragment wasn't finished. The air split with a piercing shriek. A towering figure rose from the shadows in front of the ruined gates, a distorted silhouette wearing Voldemort's form like a mockery. Taller, darker, its eyes glowing with unnatural hunger. Hermione stepped instinctively between Harry and the creature. "No, you won't control this memory." The figure tilted its head. "I do not control the memory. I control him." It pointed a long, twisted hand toward the younger Harry. The ground cracked. Hermione grabbed Harry's arm. "It's trying to merge with your past self, trying to overwrite your memories with its presence." Harry's stomach clenched. If the fragment succeeded, the ritual would collapse, and his mind might go with it. "Hermione," he said tightly, "we have to sever its link." She nodded sharply. "Together." The shadow Voldemort lunged. Hermione and Harry raised their wands, magic blazing in twin arcs of gold and red. The spells struck the fragment's form, but instead of shattering, it absorbed the magic with a hiss, growing larger. Hermione sucked in a breath. "It's feeding off your fear from that night." Then Harry understood. Fear fueled it. Courage would weaken it. He lowered his wand. "Harry, what are you?" He stepped forward, toward the creature, toward the shadow of Voldemort. Hermione reached for him, panic flashing across her face. "Harry, no!" He stopped just inches from the creature's swirling darkness. Its cold tendrils reached toward him. Harry's voice was quiet, steady. "You can't hurt me with memories that I've already survived." The creature froze. Harry took another step, raising his voice. "You aren't Voldemort. You're just a shadow, a leftover piece of him. But I am alive despite him. I am whole despite him." The fragment trembled. Harry felt Hermione's presence at his back, her magic glowing gold and warm supporting him. "And I," he whispered, "am not alone." Hermione's magic surged around him, bright as a rising star. The fragment screamed. It unraveled, its form shredding apart like smoke torn by wind. Darkness scattered across the courtyard, blown away by the golden light that burst from Harry's core. The graveyard memory shattered. The courtyard memory fractured. The entire scene collapsed into blinding white. They landed back in the real world with a jolt. Harry gasped, his lungs aching. Hermione caught herself on her hands, hair falling over her face, her breath sharp and uneven. For several long moments, they knelt beside each other on the wooden floor, hearts racing, the remnants of magic crackling softly in the air. Hermione was the first to speak, voice soft and trembling. "Harry." That was the fragment's anchor. Harry lifted his head slowly. "The battle?" "No." Hermione met his gaze, her eyes luminous with dawning certainty. "Not the battle, not the fear. The anchor is tied to your willingness to sacrifice yourself, to your courage, to your selflessness." Harry blinked. Why would it cling to that? "Because that was the moment Voldemort feared most," Hermione whispered. "Your bravery, your love." She exhaled shakily. "It doesn't just cling to your pain, it clings to your strength." Harry felt the truth settle into him like a heavy stone. Hermione reached for his hand again, her touch warm and steady. "We know its nature now," she said. "We know what it feeds on." Harry squeezed her hand. "Then we can defeat it." Hermione looked at him, an unspoken emotion burning in her eyes. "We will," she whispered. "Together." Outside, the mist thickened once more, as though something in the darkness had felt their victory and retreated, only to strike again with greater force. Harry and Hermione held each other's hands a moment longer. Neither spoke, but both knew. The fragment was wounded, but far from finished. For 2 days, the cottage remained steeped in a tense, brittle quiet, as though the walls themselves listened for the slightest tremor from the darkness curled inside Harry's soul. Even the air felt heavy, charged with old magic and the residue of memories torn open and stitched back together. Hermione slept in brief, restless fragments. Harry barely slept at all. But they worked. They studied. And the closer they came to understanding the fragment's nature, the more dangerous the atmosphere around them grew. By late evening of the third day, Hermione closed the final ancient tome with a decisive snap. Candlelight flickered over her face, revealing equal parts exhaustion and determination. "I've found it," she said softly. "The key, the final answer." Harry straightened in his chair. "Tell me." Hermione pushed the book aside and faced him fully. A strand of hair fell loose from her bun, brushing her cheek, but she didn't seem to notice. "The fragment is not anchored simply to a moment in your memories," she began, "nor to fear or pain alone. It's anchored to the point where your soul fractured and healed at the same time." Harry frowned. "The forest?" "Yes," Hermione whispered. "The moment you accepted death was the moment Voldemort's killing curse tore through the fragment inside you and left behind a trace, a birth scar in a way, a place where something foreign once lived." Harry exhaled slowly. He had always felt the forest lived inside him in some subtle, silent way. Now he understood why. Hermione continued, her voice low. "When your soul healed after that curse, the Horcrux didn't vanish entirely. A faint echo sank into the fracture, too small to detect then, too quiet to matter. But over the years, as your magic settled, as you lived, as you loved, it grew into something that could cling to you." Harry leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "And now?" "It's trying to become whole," Hermione said, "by using the strongest parts of you, your courage, your sacrifice, your heart." Harry swallowed. "So how do we remove it?" Hermione's eyes darkened with resolve. "We need to return to the moment of the fracture, not as a memory, not as a reconstruction. We must access the echo, the lingering mark left on your soul." Harry blinked. "Is that even possible?" Hermione took a slow breath. "Yes, but it requires a ritual so rare it was nearly lost to time." She pulled a thin, golden-edged scroll from beneath a stack of parchment. It unfurled with a shimmer, revealing runes that seemed etched in starlight. "The ritual of the last sanctuary," she said. "An ancient spell used to enter the deepest layer of a wizard's soul. The final sanctuary of memory, emotion, and identity." Harry stared at the scroll. "That's where the fragment is hiding." "That's where it's growing," Hermione corrected, "and where we have to confront it." Harry absorbed her words, feeling the weight settle into him. "And," Hermione added quietly, "there is one more thing." He lifted his eyes to hers. "The ritual requires a soul guide," she said. "Someone whose magic has resonated with yours deeply enough to enter your sanctuary without harming you." Harry's breath caught. "Someone like you." Hermione nodded slowly. Harry's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the realization of what that meant. How deeply their magic was already entwined, how strongly their souls had resonated through every trial they'd faced together. Hermione held his gaze. "There is no one else I trust, and no one else your soul would accept." Harry's voice barely rose above a whisper. "Then we do this. Tonight." Hermione hesitated, just for a moment, but then nodded. "Tonight." They prepared the ritual at midnight, when magic ran deepest and the boundary between the physical world and inner realms thinned. The sitting room had been transformed into a circle of shimmering runes, each etched with silver fire. Moon water filled a crystal basin at the center, reflecting the two of them in soft ripples. Hermione knelt opposite Harry, her expression solemn, her hands steady, though her breath trembled faintly. "Once the ritual begins," she whispered, "I won't just be entering your memories. I'll be stepping into your soul, into the core of who you are. Nothing will hide itself from me." Harry met her gaze unflinching. "I trust you with all of it." Hermione's eyes shone, warm, moved, almost afraid of what she felt. "And if the fragment tries to take me?" Harry asked softly. "I'll stop it," Hermione said, "no matter what it takes." He reached across the space between them, taking her hands gently. "And if it tries to take you?" Hermione breathed in sharply. "I won't let it," Harry said, his voice quiet and fierce. "I won't lose you." Her fingers tightened around his. They bowed their heads over the moonwater. Hermione whispered the incantation. The runes ignited in a ring of silver flame. The air thickened, vibrating like a chorus humming through time itself. Harry felt the magic tug at him, soft at first, then stronger, pulling him inward, deeper, beyond breath, beyond thought. Hermione's voice echoed faintly through the rising haze. "Harry, I'm with you." Light swallowed them whole. The world that formed around them was neither place nor memory. It was something deeper, something untouched by time. A vast expanse of shimmering darkness, lit by drifting motes of gold like floating embers. Harry recognized this space before Hermione even spoke. "Your soul's sanctuary," she whispered in awe. "It's beautiful." Harry stood beside her, feeling the air pulse with the rhythm of his heartbeat. Here, he felt whole, strangely, peacefully whole. But the peace did not last. A cold wind swept through the sanctuary, bending the golden motes into swirling patterns. The air dimmed, shadows lengthening as a familiar presence pressed against the edges of the space. The fragment. It slithered into being like smoke, forming a shape. No face, no features, only intent. A malignant whisper in the warmth of Harry's soul. Hermione raised her wand instantly, protective and fierce. Harry steadied her arm. "No," he said quietly. "We face it together, not apart." The fragment twisted toward them. "You should not have come here." Hermione stepped closer to Harry, her presence steady as a heartbeat. "This isn't your sanctuary. It never was, and it never will be." The shadows recoiled as her voice cut through them. Harry took her hand. Golden light flared around their joined fingers. The sanctuary rippled, reacting to their united strength. The fragment screamed, a sound like cracking ice, and lunged toward them in a violent surge. Hermione tightened her grip on Harry, her magic flaring bright and fierce. "Harry, hold on to me!" He did. Their magic collided with the fragment in a burst of blinding light. The sanctuary trembled. The golden motes swirled into a storm, and the fragment's true form began to emerge, shifting, dark, hungry. Hermione's voice rose above the chaos, steady and unwavering. "Harry, this is the final battle." He nodded, breathless, heart pounding, soul burning with both fear and fierce determination. "Then we finish it." Together, they stepped toward the heart of the fragment, and the sanctuary shattered into a storm of light and shadow. Light and shadow ripped past them like twin rivers in collision, twisting and folding through the sanctuary in great spirals. Harry felt the ground vanish beneath his feet, yet somehow he remained standing, or perhaps existing, held in place only by Hermione's hand, grasping his as fiercely as he held hers. The soul sanctuary was no longer calm, no longer shimmering with quiet gold. It churned violently, like a storm collapsing inward. Golden motes that once drifted serenely now streaked across the vast space like falling stars, drawn into the vortex forming at the center. Hermione steadied herself, robes whipping around her like wind-swept flame. Her face glowed with determination, though fear flickered at the edges of her expression. "This is what it truly looks like," she whispered. "The fragment, without illusions, without memory. This is its core." A dark sphere pulsed before them, massive, alive, twisting like a heart made of smoke. Tendrils of shadow lashed through the air, striking the sanctuary's edges and leaving cracks of darkness in their wake. Each crack hissed with cold, hungry magic. Harry felt a shudder ran through him, as if the fragment knew exactly which parts of him to target. Hermione noticed instantly. "Stay with me. Don't let it pull you into the void." Harry nodded, grounding himself in her voice. "I'm not going anywhere." The sphere convulsed, then tore open with a screech like metal rending apart. A figure stepped out. Not Voldemort. Not even the twisted memory form it had worn before. This shape was different, closer to Harry's height, its outline almost human. Its skin was made of shadow, its eyes two dull, ember-like lights. It flickered with remnants of memories. Battlefields, screams, old pain, shifting through its form like reflections on water. Hermione swallowed, voice barely more than a breath. "It's mimicking you." Harry stiffened. "Me? Your fear, your anger, your grief, everything it's fed on." The creature moved forward, slow and deliberate, as if testing its new shape. Each step made the sanctuary tremble and dim. Hermione raised her wand. "Stay back!" A tendril of shadow shot toward her. Harry intercepted, his wand flashing in a burst of gold. The tendril snapped back with a hiss. "Harry," Hermione warned, "don't let it separate us." He nodded, gripping her hand tighter. The creature tilted its head as though studying the gesture. Then it spoke, its voice echoing from a deep, hollow place. "You cannot destroy what you created." Hermione stepped forward, fury igniting in her eyes. "He didn't create you. You're a parasite, a mistake." The fragment's gaze turned toward her, embers smoldering brighter. "He gave me life when he chose death." Harry felt the words cut through him like cold steel. "No," he said fiercely. "I chose to protect the people I loved." The fragment rippled, dark energy rolling beneath its surface. "And that love gave me refuge. In your soul, in your heart." Hermione's breath hitched. "Harry, don't let it twist the truth." Harry lifted his wand, jaw set. "You don't belong here." The creature spread its arms, shadows unfurling around it like wings. "I belong where your soul cracked, where you bled, where you chose to die. I am the echo of that moment, and I am strong because you are strong." The sanctuary dimmed further, golden motes fading into darkness. Hermione's grip tightened painfully. "It's drawing power from your courage," she realized. "It's feeding on the very thing that destroyed Voldemort." She looked at Harry, desperation flickering in her eyes. "We have to weaken it before it fully adapts." "How?" Harry asked, breath unsteady. Hermione swallowed hard. "By denying it what it feeds on." Harry frowned. "But it feeds on my bravery, my emotions, my soul." "And your memories," Hermione added. "The ones that shaped you." Harry stared at the creature. "So, what do we do? Forget everything that makes me who I am?" Hermione's voice softened. "No, we don't destroy your memories. We confront them." She lifted her wand, and with a resonant hum, the sanctuary warped around them. The darkness tore away, replaced by a blazing scene of fire, blood, and ruin. Harry gasped as he stood once more in Hogwarts's great hall. Bodies lying under sheets, spells echoing in the air, grief pressing on every breath. The fragment strode into the memory as though it owned it, the shadows of its forms spreading across the stone floor. Hermione pointed toward the shifting scene. "This is where you nearly broke, where the fragment first realized it could hide, in your grief." Harry felt the weight of that night gathering in his chest. He saw Remus, pale and still, Tonks beside him, Fred. He clenched his jaw. Hermione stepped close, her hand brushing his. "Don't let it take this from you," she whispered. "Your grief doesn't belong to it." The fragment stalked closer, absorbing the memory's shadows, growing stronger. Harry's breath shook. Hermione turned to him, voice steady. "Harry, say their names." He looked up sharply. "What?" "Say them," she insisted, voice firm. "Remember them with love, not grief. Show the fragment it doesn't control how you feel." Harry stared at her, heart thundering. Hermione nodded, eyes shining. "Trust me." Harry took a breath. Remus, Lupin. The shadows flickered. Nymphadora, Tonks. The dark tendrils recoiled slightly. Fred Weasley. Hermione's hand slipped into his, grounding him. "I remember them," Harry whispered, "with love, with pride, not with fear." A burst of golden light erupted from his chest. The fragments screamed. The great hall memory shattered like glass struck by a hammer. They were thrown back into the sanctuary, this time brighter, steadier. The golden motes glowed fiercely. Hermione gasped, stunned. "Harry, you weakened it, truly weakened it." But the fragment was far from defeated. It rose again, staggering, its ember eyes blazing with rage. "You will not destroy me. I am the part of you that survived death. I am the wound you never healed." Harry took a step forward. "No," he said quietly. "You're just the part I never faced." Hermione lifted her wand beside him. "And you're done hiding in the dark." The fragment roared, shadows spiraling outward like a storm. Hermione whispered sharply, "Harry, now, while it's destabilized." Harry raised his wand with both hands, pouring every memory of love, courage, sacrifice, and hope into his magic. Hermione's magic intertwined with his, gold and amber, fierce and bright. Together they shouted, "Expurgo animam!" A beam of brilliant light shot from their wands, piercing the fragment's core. The creature shrieked, collapsing inward, its form shredding into tatters of darkness. The sanctuary blazed with gold. Harry felt the weight lift, a pressure deep within him dissolving, disintegrating, fading like a nightmare at dawn. Then, silence. The fragment was gone, truly gone. Harry staggered, breath unsteady. Hermione rushed to him, catching him as he nearly fell. "It's over," she whispered into his shoulder. "Harry, you did it." He leaned into her, exhausted, the sanctuary's light bathing them in warmth. Hermione's arms tightened around him, and for the first time since the dreams began, Harry's soul felt whole. But as the sanctuary began to fade, pulling them back into the waking world, neither of them noticed a final glimmer of shadow drift past the dissolving golden motes. Small, faint, almost harmless. Almost. When Harry and Hermione slammed back into their bodies, the world reformed with a violent jolt. The sitting room swayed like a ship in rough waters as the candles guttered, their flames bending sideways before snapping upright again. The silver runes flickered, then blazed, then dimmed to embers. Harry gasped, lungs burning as though the air itself seared him. Hermione, still clutching him, struggled to steady both of them. Her hair clung to her temples, damp with sweat, and her eyes shimmered with raw, trembling relief. "Harry," she whispered, breathless. "Are you—" "I'm all right," he rasped, though his voice cracked. "I think I'm all right." Hermione's hands moved over his arms, shoulders, chest, checking, confirming, assuring herself that he was truly there. Her touch trembled only once, betraying the magnitude of her fear, before she pulled him into a fierce embrace. He melted into it, letting her hold him, letting the world settle back into something real, something steady. Her heart beat against his chest was the only sound he could trust. When she finally pulled back, her gaze was full of both wonder and exhaustion. "It's gone," she breathed. "Harry, I felt it snap. The fragment is gone." Harry closed his eyes, bowing his head in relief. A long, shuddering exhale left him. "I never thought I'd feel whole again." Hermione brushed a hand down his cheek, thumb trailing lightly along the line of his jaw. "You are," she whispered. "Truly." For a moment they simply sat together, hands intertwined, letting the quiet settle around them like a soft cloak. But as the runes faded completely and the candles dimmed, the air in the room shifted. Hermione's expression changed, not with fear, but with confusion and something like dread. "Harry," she murmured, looking down at their joined hands. "Something feels different." Harry followed her gaze. A faint gold glow pulsed beneath their linked fingers. Not bright, not dangerous, just steady, warm. Hermione inhaled sharply. "Our magic, it's still intertwined." Harry blinked, startled. "Even after the ritual ended?" Hermione shook her head slowly, her brows drawing together with dawning understanding. "Harry, soul resonance spells dissipate instantly after the connection is broken. They don't linger unless—" She stopped. Harry's throat tightened. "Unless what?" Hermione looked up at him, eyes wide, luminous and suddenly uncertain. "Unless the souls involved have chosen to remain connected." Harry's heart gave a hard, uneven thud. "Chosen," he echoed softly. Hermione nodded once, tiny, almost terrified. "It means our magic bound itself, not accidentally, not forcibly, but because something in both of us allowed it." The gold light flickered gently between their fingers, pulsing with a rhythm neither of them recognized consciously, but their bodies seemed to respond to it. Harry felt warmth spread through him, calm, steady, full. Hermione swallowed, her voice barely more than breath. "Harry, soul magic reacts to intention, emotion, trust. It doesn't bind unless there's something powerful anchoring it." Harry felt the realization unfurl inside him, slow and inevitable, like dawn creeping over the horizon. "Hermione," he whispered, "what did we anchor it with?" Hermione held his gaze, held it, and in her eyes he saw everything: fear, hope, longing, and something that had grown between them slowly, silently, through memories and battles and whispered trust. "Harry," she whispered, "I think we anchored it with love." The air tightened around them, thick as magic. Harry couldn't breathe for a heartbeat, not because he was afraid, but because the truth settled over him with astonishing clarity. He had anchored the ritual with love, love for her, love that had been growing quietly for years, shadowed by friendship, but rooted deeper than anything he had ever spoken aloud. Hermione's breath shook. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, voice trembling. "I didn't mean to. This isn't why I only wanted to help you. I didn't mean to cross something sacred. Hermione," Harry murmured. She froze. He lifted her hand gently, bringing it to his chest where his heartbeat thudded strong and sure beneath her palm. "You didn't force anything," he said softly. "Nothing about this is wrong." Hermione's lips parted, eyes wide with a mix of wonder and disbelief. "Harry, I love you," he said simply. No hesitation, no uncertainty. Hermione inhaled sharply, her breath catching in her throat. Tears rose, shimmering. The gold glow between their hands brightened, soft, warm, as if responding to the truth spoken aloud. "Harry," she whispered, stepping forward without thinking. But before she could say the words, the air shifted again, this time with unmistakable pressure. Both of them stiffened. The candle flames bent sideways. A cold shudder rippled through the warded walls. Hermione's eyes widened in horror. No, it should be gone. It should be gone. Harry stood instantly, wand raised. "Hermione, what is that?" Hermione extended her senses, her magic brushing the air like a trembling hand searching for a heartbeat. And then she felt it, a faint pulse, weak, small, almost insignificant, but real. Her face drained of color. "Harry, it isn't the fragment. It's what it left behind." Harry felt cold wash through him. "What do you mean?" Hermione turned toward him slowly, fear blooming across her features, not from danger to herself, but danger to him. "When the fragment was destroyed," she whispered, "it tore itself from you, violently. A soul wound never closes cleanly." Harry reached for her hand again, grounding her. "Hermione, tell me." Hermione steadied herself, meeting his eyes with raw honesty. "It left a scar," she said. "Not physical, magical. A void inside your soul." Harry swallowed. "Is it dangerous?" Hermione shook her head quickly. "Not dangerous, not immediately. But it is empty, and soul voids do not remain empty for long." Harry frowned softly. "Then what fills it?" Hermione hesitated, her breath trembling. "Soul voids," she whispered, "fill with the magic closest to them at the moment of creation." Harry blinked. Hermione's eyes glistened, not with fear, but with a dawning, overwhelming realization. And at that moment, "Harry, I was holding you." Harry's breath caught. Hermione stepped closer, so close he felt her magic brush against his like a warm current. "Our souls were bound," she whispered, "intertwined, anchored, and when the fragment tore free, it left a void your soul reached out to fill." Harry stared at her, heartbeat thudding. "And it reached for you?" he whispered. Hermione nodded slowly, painfully. "Yes." The golden glow between them pulsed, once, twice, growing brighter with each beat. Hermione swallowed. "Harry, a part of my magic might now live inside you." Silence filled the room, heavy, shimmering, sacred. Neither of them moved. Neither dared to break the moment. Harry lifted her hand again, slowly, reverently, as though afraid she might vanish. "Hermione," he said softly, "your magic has always been part of me." Hermione's breath hitched. Her fingers splayed against his chest, feeling the echo of their joined magic pulse beneath his skin. She whispered his name. "Harry." But before she could say more, the golden glow surged, and the soul void pulled their magic together in a sudden, powerful pulse. Hermione gasped, staggered. Harry caught her, and the world exploded into brilliant, blinding gold. The world of gold did not break like their previous crossings, those violent thrusts between memory and mind. This one blossomed slowly, like dawn unfolding petal by petal across a horizon made of light. Harry felt the floor vanish beneath him, but there was no falling, only drifting, held aloft by something warm and impossibly gentle. Hermione was still in his arms, her breath soft against his collarbone, though her eyes were wide with startled clarity. The golden radiance enveloped them both, woven through with faint whispers of magic, familiar, comforting, ancient. "Harry," she breathed, lifting her face toward the shimmering air. "This isn't the sanctuary. This is something new." The gold around them pulsed, responding to her voice with the tenderness of a heartbeat. Harry tightened his hold just slightly, grounding himself. "Hermione, are we in your soul?" Hermione inhaled sharply. No, this doesn't feel like mine either. It's both and neither." The space brightened, revealing more of its shape, or lack of shape. It was not a room, not a memory, not even a mindscape. It was a place between soul and magic, woven from threads neither entirely his nor hers. Hermione's breath caught as understanding began to seep in. "This must be the void," she whispered, the scar the fragment left behind. Harry reached instinctively for her hand. She intertwined her fingers with his without hesitation. "But," Hermione whispered, "why is it like this? Soul voids aren't warm. They aren't beautiful." Harry looked into the glowing expanse, feeling a strange, compelling pull. "Maybe because you filled it," he murmured softly. Hermione's cheeks flushed, the gold light reflecting in her eyes like twin stars. "Harry." But before she could respond, the golden void rippled. The light condensed into shapes, shadows of memories neither wholly his nor hers. Warm laughter, a library's quiet hush, the flash of a shield charm cast in perfect unison, a hand gripping another's during danger, comfort after heartbreak, trust forged through fire. Hermione stiffened as the scenes reflected across the void. Harry, these are our memories, shared memories." Harry nodded, mesmerized. "The void is drawing on what binds us." The golden visions drifted past them like living paintings. There they were, two 11-year-olds, awkward but brave, standing before a mountain troll in the girls' bathroom. There again, facing a giant basilisk's shadow, supporting each other through fear. And again, fleeing through woods, shivering in winter frost, sharing hope in a small blue fire. Hermione watched the scenes, her voice soft with wonder. "It's showing us every moment we chose one another." Harry watched her instead of the memories. "And every moment you saved me." Hermione flushed deeper, but her eyes never left his. "We saved each other." Before he could respond, the void changed again. Golden threads spun through the air, weaving into a pattern like an enormous, radiant tapestry. When the design sharpened, Harry felt his pulse quicken. It showed two cores, each glowing softly, one amber gold, one vibrant red, circling each other like twin stars. A bridge of golden light pulsed between them, thin but luminous. Hermione gasped. "Harry, that's you. And me." The souls drifted closer. "And that," she whispered, voice trembling, "is the bond." Harry felt the truth resonate through him. "This is what formed during the ritual." Hermione nodded, awe spreading across her features. "A soul bridge. I've only read about them in theory. They're incredibly rare and only appear between witches and wizards who—" She stopped abruptly. Harry stepped closer. "Who what?" Hermione swallowed, voice barely audible. Who love each other deeply, openly, unconditionally. The space pulsed in affirmation. Harry's chest tightened, not with fear, but with something deeper, steadier. He reached toward her slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. "Hermione," he said quietly, "I meant what I said before. I love you." Hermione closed her eyes, breath trembling as if holding back an entire ocean's worth of feeling. When she opened them again, they were shining, not with tears, but with unmistakable truth. "Harry," she whispered, stepping closer until her forehead nearly touched his. "I love you. I have for years. I just never let myself believe it. Not like this. Not until now." Harry's breath caught. Hermione's hand rose slowly, hesitantly to his cheek, her fingers trembling as though touching something sacred. The golden void pulsed warmly around them, reacting to every shift in their hearts. "Do you understand what this means?" Hermione whispered, voice trembling with wonder. "Our souls recognized it before we did." Harry covered her hand with his own. "Then let's stop pretending we don't know it now." Hermione's lips parted, her breath catching, her eyes searching his for any doubt, and finding none. She leaned in, not with the suddenness of passion, nor the uncertainty of fear, but with the slow, reverent certainty of someone who had walked beside him through storms and battles and years of unsaid truths. Harry met her halfway. Their lips brushed softly, barely a whisper of contact, and the void exploded. Light roared silently around them, blossoming outward in spirals of gold, white and deep amber. The soul bridge flared, weaving them together in a bond that pulsed with warmth, trust, and aching tenderness. No fire burned them, no shadow struck, no echo of pain marred the moment. It was not a kiss born of desperation, it was a kiss born of destiny. When they parted, breathless, eyes glistening, the void around them shimmered with calm. Hermione pressed her forehead to Harry's, her voice a trembling whisper. "Harry, this connection, it's strong. Stronger than I ever imagined soul magic could be." He brushed his thumb along her cheekbone. "We'll face whatever comes next, together." Hermione closed her eyes, exhaling a soft, relieved laugh. But then, the void trembled. A soft, faint pulse echoed through the space. Not hostile, not dark, but new. Hermione's eyes flew open. "Harry," she whispered urgently. "The void. It's stabilizing too fast. It's sealing itself. If it closes while we're inside..." Harry pulled her closer instinctively. "What happens?" "We might never wake up." Light surged again, the void tightening like a closing fist. Hermione grabbed his hand. "We have to leave. Now!" The golden world shook, the soul bridge blazing bright as the void sealed. Harry held Hermione tightly. The void snapped shut, and the world outside rushed up to meet them in a blinding flash. The return to the physical world was not gentle this time. It tore through them like a gale force wind, shoving Harry and Hermione back into their bodies with such violent force that the entire cottage shuddered on its foundations. Candles extinguished themselves in a burst of sparks. The silver runes etched into the floor cracked like dry earth. The wards gasped, their soft hums surging into a sharp, ringing note. Harry collapsed to his hands and knees, breath ripped from his lungs. Hermione fell beside him, clutching the edge of the overturned table as though the world had tilted beneath her feet. For several long heartbeats, neither of them could speak. The room was spinning, slowly at first, then settling, trembling, finally stilling into something real. Harry's breath returned in ragged waves. "Hermione, are you—" But she was already reaching for him. Her fingers curled around his arm, then slid down until their hands met, warm, trembling, alive. "Yes," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I'm here." Harry tightened his grip, relief flooding him with dizzying force. He pulled her close, not out of fear this time, but out of pure instinct. Hermione sagged into him, her forehead pressed to his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. For a moment, they simply held each other in the darkened, ruined sitting room, alive, together, whole. When Hermione finally lifted her head, her curls brushed against Harry's cheek. She pushed them back with shaking fingers, blinking against the lingering haze of the soul void. "It's sealed just as we escaped," she said quietly. "Another heartbeat, and we would have been trapped." Harry didn't let go of her hand. "But we weren't." Hermione nodded, but her gaze drifted to the cracked runes on the floor. "We survived," she said. "But that kind of magic, it doesn't leave without changing something." Harry's stomach tightened. "You mean the bond?" Hermione exhaled slowly. "Not just the bond. The void itself. The scar. Your soul's architecture." Harry squeezed her hand. "Hermione, look at me." She did. "I'm all right," he said gently. "Even after everything, I'm standing here because of you." She opened her mouth to argue, to point out the countless magical risks still unexamined, to outline the rituals they would need to check for lingering effects. But his thumb brushed the back of her hand, and the protest faltered. The golden thread between them, which had flared into brilliance within the void, still shimmered faintly, like a quiet heartbeat accessible only to the two of them. Hermione swallowed. "Harry, it shouldn't remain like this. Soul magic shouldn't linger. The bond should have faded." Harry took a steadying breath. "But it didn't. And you know why." Hermione did. The look in her eyes said as much, but she needed to hear it again, needed to anchor the truth the way they had anchored each other in the void. Harry brushed a strand of hair gently behind her ear. "Because I love you." Hermione closed her eyes, breath trembling, as though those words touched something deep inside her soul. When she opened them again, her expression was soft, vulnerable and strong all at once. "And I love you," she whispered. "I think I always have, in ways I never understood." Harry reached for her other hand. She gave it to him without hesitation, letting him draw her closer until her knees touched his, until the gold thread pulsed softly between their chests. But before the moment could settle completely, a sudden, sharp crack split the air. Hermione jerked around, wand drawn instantly. "What was that?" Harry turned too, heart pounding, only to realize the sound had come from within him. A faint echo, not pain, not shadow, a soft pulse. Hermione's eyes widened. "Harry, your scar." His hand flew instinctively to his forehead, but the lightning-shaped mark did not burn. It didn't even tingle. Instead, for the first time in his life, it was completely still, utterly silent. Hermione's gaze softened into something like awe. "It's quiet." Harry blinked, breath catching. "You mean, it's truly gone?" Hermione whispered. The fragment was the last echo that ever touched it. And now, it's healed, fully healed. Harry sat back, stunned. He had learned long ago not to expect scars, magical or otherwise, to fade. They were stories written into skin, reminders of battles won and lost. but the silence beneath his fingertips now felt like peace, real peace. "Hermione," his voice broke. "I don't know what to say." She reached up and cupped his cheek with trembling fingers. "You don't need to say anything." He leaned into her touch, grounding himself in the softness of her palm, the warmth of her skin, the steady beat of her courage. But Hermione's eyes grew distant for a moment, reflecting thought, calculation, and something sharper beneath it. "Harry," she murmured slowly, "we still need to understand what shape the void has taken now that the bond is sealed. Soul connections can be powerful, beautiful, dangerous if misunderstood. We'll have to test." Harry interrupted her gently, brushing her hand with his. "Hermione, whatever tests we need, we'll do together. Whatever this bond becomes, we'll face it together." Hermione bit her lip, her eyes softening into a look so tender it made Harry's breath stutter. "I'm not afraid of it," she whispered. "Not anymore." He smiled, small, warm, full. "Good." Hermione blinked. "Why?" "Because neither am I." Their foreheads met, softly, instinctively, as if pulled together by gravity older than magic itself. Harry closed his eyes. "What happens next?" Hermione's breath brushed across his lips. "We heal. We learn. And," her voice softened to a whisper, "we find out what our future looks like now that our souls have stopped pretending." Harry opened his eyes. The gold thread glowed brightly between them, a promise woven into light. He lifted Hermione's chin gently with his fingers. "What do you want that future to be?" he asked. Hermione's gaze held his steadily, her courage shimmering as brightly as the magic that still knit their hands. "I want a future where we don't run from what we feel," she said softly. "Where we don't pretend we aren't stronger together." Harry's heartbeat quickened. "And," he prompted softly. "And," Hermione breathed, leaning close, "I want a future with you." Harry kissed her then, deeply, tenderly, with the certainty of someone who had faced death and found life waiting for him in the shape of the person before him. The gold thread burst into light. The room brightened. The world steadied around them. When they finally parted, foreheads still touching, Hermione whispered, "The last Horcrux is gone." Harry nodded, voice soft. "And what's left?" Hermione smiled, a radiant, trembling, utterly real smile. "Is us."